The question is as on the order paper. Sir Eric Pickles.
I'm most grateful, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm particularly grateful to follow the honourable gentleman from Ilford North, and particularly for his tribute to Lee Scott, his predecessor. I, along with a number of Lee's friends, are very cognizant of the enormous personal risk that Lee took and endured, and we're very grateful for the honourable gentleman acknowledging it. I would also like to associate myself with the intervention by the honourable gentleman from Beckenham. He's spoken many times in this chamber with regard to Srebrenica and the massacre and the genocide there, and he does well to remind us today. The honourable gentleman mentioned that we travelled together to France in the autumn of last year to look at anti-Semitism there. And I vividly recall meeting with Jewish students and their talk of how frightened they were, of how wary they were on campuses. I can't help but reflect at the disgraceful attack upon Jewish students in King's College in London just 2 nights ago, where a peaceful meeting literally about peace, was broken up with obscenities and with the breaking of a window and the breaking of a glass and the offering of violence. And frankly, we've seen this before. We have seen broken glass. We have seen Crystal Light. And if we need to know where the new fascists are, then they truly represent the new fascists in that attack that occurred in King's College. I'll be honoured, I was appointed, I'd also, before I go on, would like to associate myself with all the remarks made about the Holocaust Education Trust and, of course, the Holocaust Memorial Day. I was appointed in September to be the post-Holocaust envoy, and I took over from Sir Andrew Burns, who'd held the job for the previous 5 years. And I had the opportunity of working with Andrew on many occasions when I was with the Department of Communities. He's a very distinguished man, very well respected across Europe and across the world, and it is a genuine honour to follow him. But in terms of my brief remarks, I really want to concentrate on what Holocaust Memorial Day about standing by is about, and I'd like to take it through 2 of the organisations that I've responsible for in the UK. First of all, the tracing service, which originally started as a way of being able to find, unite different people who've been moved by the Holocaust, but is now looking at finding and returning properties that were stolen by the Nazis. And I think we need to understand that besides the many qualities the Nazis have of violence and bigotry and anti-Semitism, running through their DNA was corruption and theft. Essentially, the Nazis were thieves. They stole people's jobs, they stole people's equipment to do jobs, they stole their possessions, they stole their property, they stole their identity, and they tried to steal the very existence of the people they sought to destroy. And because, of course, there's no honour among thieves, they actually stole from themselves. And the surprising thing is that even now, 70 years after the war, we're still trying to reunite people with their property. And there are many governments across Europe who have wonderful equal opportunities policies, have marvellous remembrance of the Holocaust, who fight tooth and nail with obfuscation to prevent people getting their property back.
That's right.
So the Nuremberg laws still reign 70 years after the death of Hitler. And don't get away with the idea that these are Picassos or Klints, or sometimes they're very small objects. Sometimes they're a book with the name, the signature of a long-lost grandparent or mother. And that's the only piece of paper that has the signature. And still, our various governments refuse to hand them back, and we'll find all kinds. I will indeed.
It is. I'm extremely glad to hear what my right honourable friend is saying about all this, and in particular to associate myself with the remarks made by the person who opened the speech. But in respect of the continuing problems, I don't know whether he's aware, but there's a very important book written called Post-War Lies by a very distinguished German historian, which exposes the extent to which the 8 million people in Germany in the run-up to the war remained in the files, which were only subsequently discovered afterwards, and that regrettably a very significant number were also subsequently in the post-war period, although they were known to be accredited Nazis, were then appointed to the West German authorities and government. Is he aware of the fact that there may be some connection between what he's saying and that fact?
Well, certainly I'm aware of a particular property that I want to say something about, perhaps outside the chamber, that was stolen from a Jewish family. Went through the actual hands of Adolf Hitler, who gave it to his a favourite photographer, who kept it. And after the war, the Bavarian authorities, because they couldn't find the Jewish owners originally, decided to give it back to the Nazi, which is an extraordinary thing to do. And there are a number of files still closed within this country with regard to people we gave an amnesty. And it's certainly my ambition and hope, and I know this is something shared by the Prime Minister, that we'll at last open those files to answer some of the questions that the Honourable gentleman have. So I think it is important that we press hard. We have a pretty good system within this country which is worthy of export in terms of where there is a dispute. But until that property is returned, acknowledged to the people it was stolen from, then the rule of Hitler continues. Will my honourable friend give way? Of course I will.
I'm most grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way, and I pay tribute to the excellent opening speech for this debate, and I pay tribute to my right honourable friend, not least for his chairmanship of the Conservative Friends of Israel. Does he agree with me that it's very important? You mentioned Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, on the eve of the invasion of Poland, on August the 22nd, 1939, said to his generals, "It's a matter of indifference to me what a weak Western European civilization will say about me." And he made reference to a previous genocide which was largely forgotten in 1939, and he said, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" And does he agree with me, my right friend agree with me, that it's so important that the West keeps a very, very strong defence, and that we, the British, and indeed the whole of Europe, will not stand by if we come across any examples of genocide, and the message that we send, any tyrant thinking of genocide, committing genocide, will be held to account in the future.
Well, my honourable friend makes a very powerful point, which I obviously endorse and agree with. But, you know, it often doesn't start with an invasion, it starts with small things. And it's the small things that we need to be vigilant as well, not in any way diminishing the excellent point that my honourable friend is saying. If I could move on to the other organisation, which is IRA, who, and this is about 30-odd nations dealing with Holocaust remembrance, and they've done some really excellent job in starting to map the killing fields, the various killing sites. Because I think Auschwitz tends to dominate our view, and a visit there is truly heartbreaking. But in terms of the number murdered, it represents something like 15%. You're just as likely to have been shot in a ditch or killed in a field, or, to use Himmler's dreadful expression, annihilated but through labour. A lot of people died in those quarries. A lot of people died building their camps, and it's important that we remember their graves. And we're living in a decade where a number of countries aren't so keen to register where those places are, and I think we need over the coming decade to have a very comprehensive understanding of where they are. Madam Deputy Speaker, we have a view about the Holocaust. It's been refined over 70 years. The last 10 years, I think, have been very influential. But in terms of many countries, it's still very much a contemporary event in this sense, where there are a number of countries in Central Europe that had significant anti-Jewish laws, similar to the Nuremberg laws, and were willing participants. And it's important in terms of coming to terms with the Holocaust is to recognise that. And we ourselves sometimes, I think, are guilty of complacency. You know, we talk about the people who didn't stand by, the people who did the right thing, and we, of course, said, well, that's us. We'd do that. But the truth is, most people didn't. Most people didn't stand by. It's impossible, I think, to seriously contend that people did not know what was going on. And I think there are various reasons why they didn't interfere. The first one, obviously, they could be anti-Semitic. Second one, they could just be straightforwardly indifferent. They could be ambitious, after all. You know, to be a successful Nazi, you had to show that you believed in the program, or you don't want to be denounced by your neighbours. And of course, it was the law, and people like to obey the law.
My right honourable friend, give way.
Could I just make this point, and then I'll give way to my honourable friend? But it could be that they rather enjoyed the loot, that they rather enjoyed the auctions of Jewish goods and properties, that they rather enjoyed looting their neighbours' properties and benefiting from their hard luck. Give way to my honourable friend.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my right honourable friend for allowing me to intervene, but to reinforce what my right honourable friend is saying. Having dealt with people who carried out what is clearly a Holocaust, the one thing that rings all the way through with most of them is that they're normal people. They are normal people who carry out these obnoxious crimes. And one day, I hope, we will understand what it is that really makes normal people I've had dinner with them in Bosnia. Normal people do such foul things. And I hope very much that the Holocaust Memorial Fund will be trying to ascertain what it is that does this to people who you might actually like.
Just before the right honourable gentleman continues, I didn't want to interrupt any of the honourable members who've made interventions because they're making very careful, balanced points, but we can't have long interventions because there isn't much time left for the debate. Sir Eric Pickles.
I'm most grateful, and I won't detain the House for much longer. I think I agree with my honourable friend, and if you forgive me, I would timidly suggest that Primo Levi actually made the same point as he is when he said, monsters exist, but they are too few in number to be truly dangerous. Most dangerous are the common man, the functionary, ready to believe and to act without asking questions. I think it is fair to say that the Holocaust was not committed by monsters. The process of the Holocaust created monsters out of that very process. And in case we're feeling just a little, again, I feel just feeling like that little smog. Just consider this. You were allowed to take, in the latter part, a bag containing 20 kilos of your possessions, which is roughly the amount that you're allowed to take in terms of luggage onto a flight. What happened to the rest of it? I was in Jersey in September and visited the German hospital, and they've done a marvellous job there in terms of making a timeline. And I was listening to testimony of a family who couldn't decide whether to leave Jersey and go to the United Kingdom when the Germans occupied, or whether to stay, and they decided they would leave. And they got to the docks and they changed their minds and decided to go back to the farm. When they got back to their farm, the farm had been completely stripped by their neighbours, completely looted, including furniture, including carpets, including fixtures off the wall. So it could have happened here. We need to understand and appreciate it could happen here. So it is important to be vigilant. It is important to speak out. It is important to understand that what happened at King's College was a disgrace. And I hope that the Honourable Gentleman, when he comes to reply to this debate, will tell us what are we going to do to establish free speech and protection inside our universities and our colleges to ensure that people can go about their business without fear, without feeling that they were going to be attacked. And I look forward to government saying that. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, Martin Gilbert, in his excellent book on the righteous, ends the preface with an old Jewish saying that one who saves an individual, it is as if they saved the whole world. So I salute those who did the right thing. I salute those who stood up against the nation, against the Nazis, and we will remember forever those who died through such a cruel and a wicked system.
Order. There isn't much time, so I have to put on a time limit of 5 minutes. Joan Ryan.